Are you having trouble beating meta decks? Well, this video's for you. What's going on, guys? My name is Susu from Head-to-Head Battles, and in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to beat the top 5 meta decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duels. If you guys like content like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Hit that notification bell to join the squad, and comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything I say in this video. If you guys need any more help with Master Duels, join our Discord. We have a separate Master Duels section in Discord where we can give you deck lists, deck ideas, as well as just general overall help. Also, we stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 7:30, 8 p.m. EST. So if you guys want to see some of the smaller nuances of these decks or some of these tech choices, head over to twitch.tv/head-to-head battles and drop a follow there to know when we go live. And without further ado, let's get right into this video. Alright, so on the screen you'll see 9 hand traps. Now these hand traps are the best ones to kind of counterbalance the meta that you are going to be dealing with in Master Duels, okay? The 5 decks that we're dealing with today are going to be Drytrons, Bird Up Tri-Brigade, Eldlik, Prank Kids, and Invoke Dogmatica Dolls. So let's go over the hand traps and then go over each deck with the replay to kind of show you how they combo off, and we'll kind of show you where to hand trap your opponent for, you know, the most maximum potential of you ending your opponent's turn. All right, so let's get right into it. First hand trap that I want to talk about today is DD Crow. Let's read this card together. It says, quick effect, you can discard this card to the graveyard, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish that target. Now, DD Crow is really good against BENTEN, especially because BENTEN needs to resolve where it's activated. So if you banish the BENTEN, they can't resolve the BENTEN. Now that's a little sneak peek for you, but just to kind of give you a heads up, right? The next one that we're playing is Duel and Lockbird. Let's read this card together. This says, if a card is added from the main deck to your opponent's hand, except during the draw phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and for the rest of this turn, cards cannot be added from either player's main deck to the hand. So Duel and Lockbird, again, huge against Drytron and the Invoke Dogmatica matchup. Next, we're playing a card that everyone knows, Maxi. It says during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons, immediately draw one card. Next, we're playing we're playing Gamma. Gamma says, cannot be normal summoned or set and must be special summoned by a card effect. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters, you can special summon both this card from your hand and one side frame driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, destroy that monster. And during the end phase, it banishes it and the driver. All right. Next, we're playing Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. This card is definitely a catch-all and a card that you should most definitely have crafted early in the game. This card says when a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, you can discard this card to negate that effect. Not the activation, the effect. It says, if a card allows you to add a card from deck to the hand, special summon from the deck, or send a card from deck to the graveyard, all these effects are ashable, and Ash is a really good card against a deck like Tri-Brigades, where Fractal, their main combo piece, is very, very ashable. All right. Next, we're playing Artifact Lancia. Artifact Lancia says you can set this card from your hand to your spell and trap zone as a spell, but we don't really care. Okay. The effect that we really care about is during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can tribute this card from your hand or face up on the field. Neither player can banish cards for the rest of this turn. So again, really good against Invoke Dogmatica Dolls and Tri-Brigades. Next, we're playing my favorite hand trap in all of existence, Dimension Shifter. This card says, if I have no cards in my graveyard, I can quick effect send this card from your hand to the graveyard, and until the end of the next turn, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead, which is really powerful because if your opponent is comboing off, or even if you're going up against Eldlik, if they don't, or rather if they can't get the cards into the graveyard and they're banished, most of these like meta decks don't have any way of getting cards back from the banished pile. All right. Next, we're playing Nibiru. Nibiru says, during the main phase, if your opponent normal or special summons 5 or more monsters this turn, you can quick effect tribute as many of those face-up monsters on the field, and if you do, special summon this card, then special summon a token on your opponent's side of the field with the combined original attack and defense of the tributed monsters. Okay, so generally speaking, most decks can out the Nibiru token if you give your opponent like an insanely fat token, but generally you should be able to out it. All right, and the last one we are playing is Infinite Impermanence. Now this card says, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. Then, if this card was set before activation is on the field at resolution, for the rest of this turn, all other spell and trap effects in this column are negated. So generally, you want to put Infinite Impermanence in the middle column, but most good players will play around the columns, which is really important for you to know. All right, so let's move on with our first deck, and that is going to be Drytrons. All right, so on the screen, you'll see that, I am playing Drytrons, and we're going to kind of go through their main combo line. And this combo line isn't perfect. I'm just trying to kind of show you where to interrupt your opponent, all right? So let's watch this replay and kind of talk over it, okay? So when they go Alpha Tribute BENTEN, right, BENTEN will search them a card. Here, if they don't have orange, like Call by the Grave or Herald of the Orange Light, if you Droll and Lockbird them here, they are effectively not playing this game. So after the Alpha Resolution or whatever card that they want to resolve, if you Droll and Lockbird them at this interaction after the first search, and they cannot, and they don't have an answer to it, you effectively end their turn outright. Now, if you generally only open Ash, right? Like Ash is the only hand trap that you've opened. The best time to Ash your opponent is generally Drytron Alpha Thuban. There are almost every card in their deck is ashable. If they only open one name and you Ash Alpha Thuban, it should generally end their turn as well. All right, so let's keep watching this combo, and there is a part where I want to show you where the best place in the Nibiru is. All right, so after they've gone Alpha and Zeta, they're going to go into Mu Beta. Mu Beta will dump them Gamma, right? And once Gamma's on the field, what they're going to do is either go Meteona's Drytron to summon back a BENTEN or normal Diviner, right? So what we want to wait for is normal summon Diviner. Diviner will dump Herald of the Arclight. Right here is the best place for you to Nibiru them, because although they do get the search off of Cyber Angel BENTEN because it was tributed, it doesn't matter because they already committed the summon, their normal summon, to Diviner of the Herald. So they cannot normal summon anymore. And after Gamma resolves, they essentially only have one more Drytron name that they can use, which is Delta. And the most that they will put up here is probably a Herald of Ultimateness and nothing more. So if you want to nib your opponent, wait until your Drytron opponent normal summons Diviner mid combo, because this is midway into their combo, all right? But if they start the turn with normal summon Diviner, generally speaking, infinite impermanence on normal summon Diviner is really, really powerful, because in most instances, if they normal Diviner as their first play, that means their hand is not that great. So generally, if you infinite impermanence Diviner of the Herald, then generally speaking, they probably aren't going to have as explosive as a turn that you may think. All right, so and let's kind of talk about it. So generally, Max C should have been something that was chained way early on into the combo, chained to Alpha Thuban as well. So generally, by this time, you're already drawing 1 million cards. And if you're here and your opponent has ended their combo and they're going to end up having 6 negates, right? By the time they finish their combo, they would have summoned about like 10 to 15 times, meaning that if, you most definitely should have drawn Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets, or some semblance of a Kaiju to out their board. And kind of like my last thoughts on this is that Called By and DD Crow are really good against BENTEN, especially and in terms of an interruption. But Dimension Shifter, if your deck can play it, I highly recommend that you play that card, because just like Droll and Lockbird, if Dimension Shifter resolves, Drytron players will pass. So that's it for Drytrons. Let's move over to deck number 2. All right, so the second deck I want to take a look at today is Bird Up Tri-Brigade, or any Tri-Brigade variant, because generally speaking, if you can interrupt them on the Tri-Brigade part and you open Ash Nibiru, as long as you Ash Fractal and Nibiru them before they make Draco Future, their turn effectively ends. But let's look at this combo and talk through it. So generally speaking, most players, they'll go they'll go Fractal, Pitch Kit, Pitch Nerval, right? So if you can Ash them on the Fractal, the only thing that they can do is normal summon, link it off, but even then, they have no more plays, right? So if Fractal was their only play and they didn't have any of their Bird Up engine, they're effectively going to pass. Now, another really powerful time to interrupt them is when they normal summon a monster and they use their effect, right? So they banish for cost, which means that the cost is paid before the effect gets to resolve. So after they pay cost, so after they banish 2 monsters, you can infinite impermanence them and they will not get their link summon, which is really, really important, right? Because if they did not Heart Open Revolt, they don't have the follow-up, which is really, really good, okay? Nibiru in this deck is generally overall a really good hand trap, but the one reason Nibiru isn't so good in the pure, in the pure Tri-Brigade variant is because they'll always find a way to revolt, and revolt is, you know, it's a card that allows your opponent to play on your own turn. But during the bird up strategy, when they have 2 XCs with the same names to go into F0, you have to nib them there, or they're going to make a Draco Future, and your nib will never ever resolve, okay? So that's really, really important. Now, if you can also gamma the normal summon effect to negate and destroy, that is also really powerful. Also, Maxi is also really good, but as you guys know, Maxi is going to be good against any of the meta decks, even Ellic, because they do special summon often. Now, Lancia is definitely a card that you really want to play against this deck, because if you Lancia them, they can't banish for cost, period, and you can only Lancia on your opponent's turn anyways, right? So if you guys have any more questions about this deck and how to beat it, please join the Discord. That is the best place for us to be able to help you in real time without there being any lag in the YouTube comments. All right, so let's move on to deck number 3. All right, so the third deck that I want to talk about is how to beat Ellic. Now, Ellic is definitely a little bit interesting because the first interaction generally with trap decks in general are going to be pot cards. Now, if you have Ash Blossom, right, you will most definitely want to Ash Pot of Extravagance, because it does. Most trap decks don't really care what they see; they just want to see more cards, right? So generally speaking, if you Ash Pot of Extravagance, instead of them playing with the 5-card opening hand, now they're only playing with 4. And if you know anything about trap decks, the less cards that you have to deal with, the easier it is for you to win, right? So they're going to go Cursed Elend, adding Conquistador, and they'll set 5 and, you know, normal summon border, set 5 and pass. Now, generally speaking, obviously Ellic loses to Lightning Storm, but they have the Solemn Judgment in this case, right? But generally speaking, if you can bait out their Solemn Judgment, right, and their main combo is going to be Chainlink 1 Conquistador, Chainlink 2 Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine, if in a simplified game state against Ellic, if you Ash Sanguine, they effectively, their turn is very, very weak, and they can't interrupt you, right? Because now they don't get the Conquistador pop because Ellic the Golden Lord is not on the field, okay? As always, DD Crow is really good because, effectively speaking, if you get rid of all their Golden Lords, they don't play because that is their main strategy, right? You can also, if you're playing a trap deck, play Ice Dragon's Prison, because you can get rid of 2 Golden Lords with 1 card, which is absolutely insane. Lancia is also a decent card, but the fact that, you know, most of the time they do banish those traps on your own turn, Lancia generally, you know, you can't activate Lancia because you can only activate it on your opponent's turn. And as always, Dimension Shifter is an amazing card against LA because, again, because it lasts 2 turns, even if they set 5 and you shifter them on their turn 1, and you get rid of their back row, they see no recursion with the trap cards that are already banished, because the way their trap cards work is they need to banish it on their own turn or my turn to add the, you know, the other cards to their hand to set and continue playing. So generally, if you de-shifter them and you can clear their back row, you're generally winning that game. All right, so if you de-shifter your opponent and you also Ash their Pot of Extravagance or Sanguine, definitely chilling in that bout. All right, so let's move over to the 4th deck, which is going to be Prank Kids. So as you guys know, Prank Kids is a deck where 1 card gets their entire engine started. So if they go normal summon Lampsies and they link it off for Meow Meow Moo, right? If you Ash their Lampsies here and don't allow them to summon their Dropsies, and they do not have an extender, they effectively do not get to play, right? Nibiru is really good in this deck as well because they don't put up any negates. So if you Nibiru them before they end their turn, they effectively can't even go into Pandemonium either because they won't have the necessary materials on field or in hand, right? Maxi is also really good against this deck because, again, generally speaking, if they don't open Call by the Grave or they don't open Ash, albeit this deck does play a lot of hand traps, you know, they generally don't get to play because now you have card advantage, and Prank Kids, being a mid-range deck, survive in card advantage, right? So that's generally really, really important. Dimension Shifter, again, will absolutely kill this deck because now these cards don't go to graveyard, right? So if you read this card, it says if this card is sent to the graveyard as material, you get their effects. Because they immediately get banished, you do not get their effects, right? Also, what you can do is if you have DD Crow, you can DD Crow their Meow Meow Moo. So now instead of dealing with Pandemonium for 2, instead of dealing with a Raigeki for 2 after they Pandemonium into Battle Butler, you only have to deal with 1 singular board wipe. And generally speaking, if you are also playing a decent deck that can put up some form of threat on the board for them to use their Prank Kids Battle Butler. Generally, you're having a good time, but you do have to set up multiple negates, like at least minimum 2, for them not to play through it again in their upcoming turn, okay? This is generally how the Prank Kids combo line works, and they do set up a rather large wall. And Battle Butler, it does tribute itself, but if you have Meow Meow Moo, which in this combo I accidentally shuffled it back, you can banish the Meow Meow Moo so your Battle Butler stays on field. All right, guys, so let's move over to our last and final deck and we'll end this video. All right, so the last deck that I want to take a look at today is Invoke Dogmatica Dolls. This is a really popular deck in the TCG and in Master Duels as well. So Droll and Lockbird here is your best friend. So if they start off with Terraforming or Magical Meltdown, they have to either add the Magical Meltdown or add ALEISTER the Invoker. So if you Droll them here, they effectively do not get to play. Unless they have Invocation, they could maybe put up 1 negate, but other than that, you generally turn off their entire turn, okay? Also, in terms of Nadir's Servant, we'll kind of pause the combo here. In Master Duels, Nadir's Servant is at 1. So if you Ash Nadir's Servant, because they activated the card, they're already locked out of their extra deck because you Ashed it, because it doesn't negate the activation, it negates the effect. So generally speaking, if you Ash Nadir's and that was their only play, then they're literally doing nothing, okay? Another really good card here for against the Invoke Dogmatica strategy is Lancia. So if they activate Invocation, what you can do is chain Lancia, and they cannot banish the ALEISTER that is in the graveyard, so they're going to have to find something else. Now, a lot of people in the comments are going to say you can't do that because Magical Meltdown says you can't negate fusion summons, but Lancia doesn't negate fusion summons. It simply just says that my opponent cannot banish their card. So if you chain Lancia to Invocation, you're generally weakening their turn by a butt ton, okay? Now, there are going to be instances where you're going to want to Ash the Terraforming, the Meltdown, or the ALEISTER. The best one to Ash is going to be ALEISTER because most of the time, players only play double Invocation, meaning the chances of them seeing Invocation in their opening hand is really low, as opposed to if you Ash Meltdown and they normal summon ALEISTER anyways, you know, you're definitely SOL. So if you're going to Ash anything and that is your only hand trap, make it be ALEISTER the Invoker or Nadir's Servant generally. Other than that, even if you Ash Prosperity, they generally have a lot of gas in their hand anyways. Also, D-Shifter, again, D-Shifter is just good against every meta deck. And I've said this before, but if your deck can play Dimension Shifter, I highly recommend that you play Dimension Shifter. Also, Gamma is really good on normal summon ALEISTER because 1, they can't link off if they have Invocation in the hand already, and 2, you stop them from searching that Invocation, all right? So generally, this is how the Invoke Dogmatica Shadolls combo goes. We're going to make Winda and then, you know, call it a day. All right, guys. All right, so that's it for me today. If you guys have any questions, please join the Discord. I'll have the links in the description box down below for you to do that. And if you guys made it to the end of the video and you guys enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and commenting down below if you agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video. All right, so I'm probably going to be live streaming today over at twitch.tv/HeadtoHead. If you guys want to talk about some of the smaller nuances of these decks and kind of want a even more in-depth look on where to interrupt or how to interrupt, go over there, hit that follow button so you know when I go live. All right, so this was a longer video, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. I freaking love you guys so much, man. This is Susu from Head to Head Battles, signing out.
What's up, guys? If you haven't subscribed, make sure to click that button right there in the middle.
Also, if you haven't watched that video that YouTube is recommending you, it's probably crazy, all right? Go watch it. This is Susu from Head to Head Battles,
Head to Head Battles,
signing out.